who joined the Marine Corps to get out of farming. Hopefully I didn't steal too much of his thunder. And so, my son Keith Bridges of Knox Goats. There we go.
All right, well, my name is Keith Bridges. I own Knox Goats, and recently discovered, actually, when we did a contract with the National Park Service in Georgia, that we are the largest grazing operation in the Southeast, utilizing goats and sheep to mitigate and clear invasive plants.
Woohoo!
Yeah. Backstory on me, like my father said, he was in the military. We traveled around a lot. I was actually born in Germany. We lived all over the Southeast. We settled in Atlanta for a number of years and moved up here to Oliver Springs. If you don't know where that is, there's a reason for that. It makes Newmarket look huge. And yeah, I did. I at 17, 18 years old, I said, man, I really hate farming. I don't want to be out here with these animals. They stink. So I'm going to go join the military. That's an easier thing for me to do with my life. So I did 4 years active duty infantry in the Marine Corps, 2 tours in Iraq. I got out of the Marine Corps, said, man, that was a lot of fun. I'm going to go join the Army now. So I did 4.5 years in the Army, did 1 tour to Afghanistan with the Army. And towards the end of that deployment, I emailed my parents. I'm sure this was a massive shock to them. I said, hey, here's a crazy idea. Why don't you sell your house that you have, and let's go buy a farm. But not like a little farm like we had when I was in high school, but like a big farm. What we ended up with 30 acres in Claxton, and it was a mess. The previous owner had been a hoarder. There was just stuff. I mean, I found a full wedding dress in preservation package in the attic. Wow. It was just crazy. And so it got us into regenerative farming. No, it was a size 0. I am not that tiny. So we obviously had to do something to fix the land. The whole place had been logged before our purchase of it. They'd stripped the topsoil off to sell to pay medical bills. So we had just shale and briars and random junk in all the barns. So it took 2 years of weekly bonfires, burning the random junk, hauling a lot of stuff to landfills, and like Carrie was talking about, getting every drop of carbon we could get. And in the course of that, we discovered goats. And I kind of worked with them a little bit in Afghanistan. They are the primary protein source over there. So I knew that they existed. I knew that they were really good at eating just junk, because Afghanistan is gray, mostly just dusty and rocky. The only thing they grow over there is weed. So, and poppies for heroin. So not a lot of agriculture going on over there. In the course of utilizing goats around my property to clear the land, we figured out that they're really good at it. My front pastures went from 6 foot tall briars and brambles and just a mess of stuff to really good sheep pasture, which is lush grass. And so I knew that the goats had the capacity to clear land and restore it to usable functionality. I didn't really do anything with that information. I was like, I'm gonna go to college, I'm gonna get my business degree, I'm gonna figure that out, I got the GI Bill, why not? So while in college, a friend of mine from the Marine Corps and I started doing a little small pasture poultry operation. We were doing about 200 birds a month under the exemption laws. We were doing some pasture pork. Now it takes a while for animals to grow, so we started brush hogging property as a side hustle. And so somebody asked me how we would get rid of vines growing on the fence at this industrial yard in Straw Plains. And I said, man, goats would do a really good job of clearing that up. He said, I'll pay you to bring your goats out, and Knox Goats happened accidentally. Within a year, I got rid of raising pork and poultry on pasture and was focusing purely on goats. We started with 10 goats. After 6 years in operation, we were at 240 goats. I don't know what acreage count we're hitting this year. Last year, I know we cleared 112 acres in 8 months. A lot of kudzu mitigation is our primary source of land clearing. We also do privet, honeysuckle. Basically, the only thing goats won't eat is really waxy plants. They really like briar bushes. They like multiflora rose. And one of the reasons that goats are really good at clearing land is because of their internal body temperature. Their internal body temperature is 102.1, and that temp kills all the germ in the seed. So all of their manure is readily available as biomass to the soil. You don't have to worry about anything they consume being passed to the next project. They kill 100% of soft shell seeds and 98% of hard shell seeds that they consume. So, and they're voracious consumers. Goats eat 5% of their body weight every day. So pound for pound, they eat more than cattle. So cattle eats between 1.3 and 2% of its body weight daily. So when you're talking goats, 150 goats can clear an acre of property in 24 hours, stripped down. And that's medium density vegetation. And obviously, if it's 6 foot tall kudzu wall, it might take a little longer than that. But that's the rule of thumb. The other reason the goats are great for clearing land is it's actually really healthy for the goats. They are traditionally nomadic. They like to travel and eat, much like Bruce talked about with pasture rotation. Constantly keeping the goats moving is healthy for them. No worm parasite loads will build up, and they stay healthier that way. Logistical hurdles.
Anything for parasites, or do you have to not even worry about it?
The only time we really worry about it is in the spring when they're still at the home farm and it's not quite warm enough to take them out into projects yet. Goats are prone to pneumonia and cold, wet temperatures in our early springs. When you get that fluctuation between hot, cold, and wet that we get in our springs around here, they really need to stay in their barns or in their home pasture, because when they're on the trailers, that wind gets underneath the trailers and it gets them a little chillier than they need to be. So in the spring, we will mix bioworma in their feed, which is something that I get from Premier's One website. I forget who makes it, but it puts something in the feed that actually kills the parasites in their larval stages as it consumes something that's inside the manure as they go through their larval stages, and actually breaks the life cycle of the worms. So the biggest thing we have to overcome really is the logistics of moving 150 goats around in trailers to random pieces of property. We utilize Premier One portable electric fencing for containment that is powered by usually a deep cycle battery system paired with a 300 watt solar panel, and it's all built into a logistics trailer that contains about 110 gallons of water storage, and all of that just travels behind the goats. We also leave livestock guardian dogs on site with all the animals. Most herds have 1 dog, some of the larger herds have 2 dogs. And yeah, that's goats are on site for as long as it takes to clear the vegetation down to the stubs. And
Are you using netting or strand?
netting, Premier One goat and sheep netting.
165 foot.
Yeah,
Thing, yeah.
mostly. I mean, I've got some other mixed match stuff that I've picked up over the years on good deals, but 164 feet.
For a plant like privet that sends roots out,
Yeah.
like what's the regrowth rate after goats?
So I recommend goats as the front line of your plant invasive flea management. Some places they can be the only tool you need, but with privet specifically, and what I recommend people is once the goats have defoliated, cut that plant at the base and apply something to kill the roots, if that's what you're trying to do. There's some organic things that you can use to kill roots, like salt or
Fire.
fire is really good.
Fire's good, salt and vinegar.
Salt and vinegar, yeah, there's a few things you can apply right there to that stump that'll help. It'll pull into the root system and kill the root system and prevent regrowth. With like kudzu, we recommend 2 to 3 grazings a year for 3 to 5 years until the root system is dead. Kudzu can grow 21 feet deep, and the tubers in the root system can weigh up to 200 pounds. It's a lot of stored energy in those plants. And kudzu is a huge problem. I mean, if you drive around here long enough, you'll see it. I don't know if anybody from up north who doesn't know what it is, but it's taking over 2,500 acres annually in the U.S. and costing, it's actually the largest reason for power outages in the South. The $5 million a year in damages to power line infrastructure, let alone what it's doing to the forest and kudzu is really problematic because it's it's a monoculture, and nothing native eats it. Deer might nibble at it. The only thing that really lives inside of kudzu is like groundhogs, and they live underneath of it. They just use it as cover. So I call it a green desert. Once you defoliate kudzu and you look at it, you realize there's nothing going on underneath it. There's no bugs in there except for the kudzu bugs. There's no plant, wildlife living underneath of it except for the groundhogs. And it's not actually doing a good job of stopping erosion. Every job we've been to that was just covered in kudzu has massive amounts of soil erosion underneath. You see, that's a fun story. We were walking, we were doing Project National Labs in Oak Ridge. They have a 36,000 acre nature preserve around the labs and a couple hundred acres of it covered in kudzu. So we're doing a kudzu project and we're walking through what looks like a smooth field of kudzu, and the guy in the front disappears into a 12-foot ravine. And the kudzu had grown in such a way that it was hidden. And he's a big guy, he's my size. He just, we're like, ready to go. So that was kind of interesting. But yeah, once you defoliated that space, you could just see these very eroded hillside that looked smooth because of the kudzu.
Do you recommend like anyone to seed anything after the kudzu's been taken down 1 or 2 years?
Yeah, so we actually we recommend we use a 3-season blend. We use a winter rye and a fescue and a clover. We can throw it out, but the same day we put the goats on the site, the goats will actually push it into the soil when they walk around and fertilize it. And so when you remove the leaf structure from the kudzu, it starts to warm the soil up, so anything that's in that seed bed will start to propagate. So we found there's a lot of seed underneath kudzu. You'll see a lot of times when you defoliate kudzu, grasses will start popping up almost immediately. So depending on how long it's been there and the level of erosion underneath of it, there is still native plant life in the seed bed.
What's the smallest herd you have?
6 goats. I have 6 goats on a job in South Knoxville right now. Somebody's backyard. Yeah. Yeah.
Typically you're leaving them for a few days?
That project will take about 2 weeks. That's about what we average on our projects is 2 weeks, unless they're really big. We marry the group of goats to the size of the projects. I have herds ranging from half dozen up to, we've got 150 right now in Georgia. And so just when we get the request for the work, we go, okay, well that's a half acre, so that's going to get a group of goats. That can clear in 2 weeks.
What breeds are you finding are more disease resistant?
Disease resistance, as far as we can tell from all research, is not breed specific in goats. There are more breeds that are, it's genetic, and it can be, some breeds have better genetics, like there's certain lines of the Spanish brush goats that are really disease resistant, but again, it's not necessarily a breed as much as it's...
Yeah.
It's kind of what the people have been focusing on. I've noticed we have some retired dairy goats, and you can tell that the goats were loved and cared for, but they were dry lauded and milked, and they're parasite resistant. It leaves a lot to be desired.
It's generational management. So if you've got a group of goats that has generationally been like dewormed on a schedule and left on a dry lot 6 months out of the year, and there's no parasite resistance because they've never needed it. And there's no ups and downs in that genetic history. When you've got goats, you know, I've ran the gamut buying goats off Craigslist. Don't recommend it. But some goats that have been poorly managed or actually end up with more goats that have better disease resistance because the survivors of that management style continue to propagate, and the ones that didn't have natural disease resistance didn't.
Can I ask, so like, you know, I raise some face sheep, so I know that's not all I know in the ruminant business.
I consider sheep much easier to raise than goats. I have some Katahdins. The biggest difference is sheep are dumb and goats are devious.
You have like great fencing.
Yes.
Yes.
You can fence sheep in way easier than you can a goat.
I can keep sheep in with 3 strands of barbed wire and a stick, where the goats, if it doesn't hold water, it won't hold goats.
So you've got an area overgrown with briars or privet or kudzu,
Yes, sir.
and you're going to put your premier netting. What's your process of getting it around that? You know, because you can't have a 3,000 foot net, you know, I mean, how do you get it around the desired spot?
Right, so
You just
we
go in?
hand cut trails. We'll use hand tools, mostly weed eaters with metal blades on the end. We cut a 4-foot wide trail through wherever space we're working at, and then we cut a 6-inch wide path all the way almost to the dirt on the right edge of that trail, so that any vegetation on the inside of the project doesn't get pushed over into the fence by the goats. So we have a clear area of vegetation, and then the fence runs in that we call it the fence cut.
Two questions. I know San Francisco International Airport uses goats for their brush management on the field. Is that something that you can do out here? Or?
We've not been approached by McGee Tyson, but I mean, I could talk to them if they wanted us to. We do a lot of projects for government entities. Like I said, National Park Service in Georgia, National Labs in Oak Ridge. We've got another Department of Interior contract with the Office of Mine Reclamation coming up in Crab Orchard next year.
Did you do Fort Dickerson?
We did not. That particular individual predates me. He went out of business in about 3 years before I started, and he retired and moved to North Carolina. I've been trying to find the point of contact that they were using, because Fort Dickerson's still covering kudzu.
Yeah.
But nobody from the city has contacted us. I have done a little bit of work with the county in Knoxville.
Do you feature any of your goats?
The demand has been so high for us that they're more valuable to me grazing than they are in the freezer. I'm not opposed to it. I think it's delicious. The last one I had was my 30th birthday, but obviously I need every goat out there eating. So.
Oh, you have to go out and tend to them.
So we do herd checks every 48 hours, every 2 days or less if necessary, if we're in the area. But in the summertime, livestock guardian dogs don't require as much food as they do in the winter to stay warm. They're very low energy animals, so we feed them high protein meal every other day. We check the water, we check the fence perimeter. A lot of our jobs, we also utilize cell phone based game cams to monitor the situation remotely. All the customers have our direct contact information, and then we often will pass out our contact information to any neighbors for the project. So if anybody has any concerns or complaints, they can immediately contact us 24 hours a day.
The way I have some goats, and one of my issues is I've planted lots of trees, so I try to fence them in, but then let's see how to avoid this tree. Is there any particular way to save a tree when you let it go on it?
Because goats will debark a tree, especially saplings, especially fruit trees because they have sweet bark. We wrap the trunks in a tarpaulin material. It's that gray stuff we use. I forget. I don't know what it is. I got it from a friend of mine who works at a factory. I just have like 6 rolls of it. We cut it into strips, and then we use bungee cables to attach it to the tree where it won't damage the bark. And we just leave that in for the duration of the project, and then take it off when the goats move out of that space.
What's this called?
It's just like a thick tarpaulin rubber material, rubber matting.
You have a clever solution to keep the goats from eating the dog food.
Take the dogs out, put them off the side, or raise dogs aggressive enough to snap at the goats before they eat their food.
Yeah,
Because
some dogs will not let the goats in their food.
I definitely get dogs that the goats know better than to put their nose anywhere near the dog's food. But I also have dogs who are too nice to the goats, so I pull them out and I put them off the side while we feed them.
Okay, so you're hand feeding the dog. You don't have an automatic feeder.
No, yeah, we hand feed the dogs. And now we have looked at some systems with some crawl unders, jump through gates.
Right.
If we were like on a piece of property that was our own and we were there constantly doing rotation, I would probably build some kind of draggable dog feeding station that had a jump gate or a crawl gate underneath of it. I've seen a lot of big producers out west doing something like that. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Do you castrate them?
Yeah, we do a bandless castration. It's called the Bridges of. So we have a lot of, we breed. So we have 60 kids this last year. And so out of that, we take the males at 12 weeks and we do a bandless Bridges castration system.
Is bud?
No, I like my goats with handles. So, yeah, and any goats that we have that don't have horns, we have to put collars on because we do handle them so regularly, that especially like putting them in and out of trailers for projects. Horns and goats are used as a heat radiation system. They actually cool down with their horns. So when we've got them out on projects, and there's not always a lot of shade for them. We do put up shade cloths attached to our trailers when necessary or when we can, but we want them to have every advantage possible.
What's the approximate cost?
So we're at $1,600 an acre plus that for delivery. I'd like to pull that number down, but with labor and just the cost of doing business with everything going up, it's been rough this year. Plenty of government contracts and government. We were actually told that one government contract we should charge about 3 times as much as we did. So,
Is poison ivy in the realm of things you can put over?
absolutely, goats will tear it up. They have an extra thick mucous membrane on their tongues that prevents they don't get affected by it at all.
Will they kill it, or will it just keep going back?
They do kill it. Same thing with the kudzu. It's just a matter of constant pressure. So they defoliate. They remove the plant's ability to store and photosynthesize energy. So the more they graze it, the more weakened the roots become, and then over time you kill it off. It's very rarely are goats the silver bullet. They're not a one and done. And they're just part of the land management cycle. With goats, I say that they're a great first wave because they can get in there, they can clear stuff. You don't necessarily have to expend the labor to break down the trails and defoliate the various things. They'll use their own body weight to break down bushes. They love eating thorny plants. So once the goats are done, get in there with a sickle or a machete and trim back some stuff, or cut your limbs back so you can walk through a heavily wooded space, or cut whole plants out.
I saw a video a long time ago about a person using goats first and then following with pigs to really root up the ground.
That is a excellent way of doing things. I have found it very difficult to propose that to customers and HOAs. We have talked about it. And pigs would be very, very good at a lot of that. In fact, we've tried to get the national labs to agree to a research program that I've developed for using pigs to get rid of kudzu, to reduce the time it takes to, instead of a 5-year program, we can knock it down to a 2-year program. But it involves the use of pigs, and because the property is managed by TWRA, they have a problem with pigs because of the feral hog problem, and I was like, we'll just use castrated pigs. There's all males, all castrated. That's not a problem. It won't increase the population at all, but there's still been a lot of pushback. But yeah, pigs are great for that.
So, I have one goat, and she gets out when my cow decides that she wants to get out and takes the fence down.
Right.
But none of them stray very far. When your goats escape, do they all stay together, or?
So goats are extremely herd family oriented. If 1 or 2 goats gets out, they're going to hang out right there with the group. If the entire herd gets out, that's problematic because they will move as a group and just travel. They travel very rapidly. Thankfully, they're all bucket trained. So one of the things we do when we go out and do our herd checks is we give them some sweet feed. Not that they need it because they got plenty of vegetation with that, but it keeps them used to seeing us and coming to us when we have a bucket of feed.